They wouldn't
CEO
have been
position.
candidates,
No.
let alone chosen.
Right.
But Jesus chose, and what they do? They changed the world. Now that's data's already in concrete. So you can't change it, whether you like it, disagree with it.
And so to sum up this initial session that we have, your career, your ministry in Christian education, higher education, has been to try to inspire the people that are sitting in your classrooms, the people who are aspiring to be leaders in the church, to understand that it's just not enough to quote the Bible, that like Paul, they need to know the culture they're trying to reach.
Without that,
right.
There is no communication.
Right.
So don't tell me that you're all enamored with evangelism when you will not pay the cost of preparation for evangelism.
Right.
Now you can teach the Bible to people that believe it.
Sure.
You can't teach the Bible to people that don't believe a word of it.
Right. You have to get them to the point where they start to take it seriously.
Now, then I get to a point, tried to, I failed probably, but I tried to get them to order their worldview. They have one, whether they know what that word is.
Just to be conscious of it.
Be conscious of it. Because everyone lives and decides with some certain assumptions. No question about that. I don't care whether you're in Africa, Asia.
It's just trying to be aware of what your assumptions are.
Now, what Sire's great book on discipleship of the mind.
Right.
Use that as a model, which is biblically grounded.
Sure.
Discipleship of the mind, to love God with your whole mind. This is what they asked Jesus. He said, what's the greatest commandment? And what did he quote? He says, to love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul.
Right.
Well, that's nous, mind, your thinking apparatus.
And like Paul in Romans 12:2, renewing of your mind.
Now that's on the other end.
Yeah.
This is, but you worship God, one, you love God, and one, you worship God with your mind. And those are nous, where there are two different Greek words for knowledge, and this is the apparatus of your thinking apparatus. So if he wanted to say your feelings, he could just easily say, how do you feel about it?
But he didn't go Schleiermacher.
No. See, but Schleiermacher totally misunderstood. I couldn't say he misread science, but he thought science had already liquidated it. So we're going to protect the faith by Gefühl, by the feeling.
Right.
Well, he didn't.
Irreducible feeling that science can't account for.
It had, yeah. This is marvelous. Thank you for being here. No, that's exactly what happened.
Right.
It happened in existentialism, phenomenology, and by the time you get to Freud, you get to the developments in the 18th, 19th century, the turning points in history that we get to. See, they've already happened. I'm not trying to get them from happening. I'm trying to understand them.
And thus that's been the what you've endeavored to try to do through your ministry of education and when you were serving the church as well. Because I know my understanding is that you've not only served for many decades as a professor but also as a preaching ministry.
Well, there was a time, not sound like horn tooting, but there was a time that, and I apologize to my lovely wife. She's a marvelous woman, have two darling daughters. And I was gone on average of 40 weekends out of 52 weekends.
Okay.
In churches.
Sure.
All over the United States. I've been in 40, not in all,
right,
but in 40 churches in Hawaii and the Philippines. And I wouldn't do that again for my family. But sometimes my wife went with him, and sometimes the churches were so cheap they couldn't pay for her flying out. So, but that's already happened. I just have to announce it. I can't do anything about it. But I've apologized. That's the most. I think my wife is virgin born. She is a precious, precious woman.
Yeah, she is literally a jewel.
Oh, no question. That's not only her name. Right. That's a description. She's the jewel of the Nile. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there, but in my heritage, I mean, in my time here, the least that for years, the least that I was gone weekends was 32. The most was 45.
So it was busy.
I was preaching.
Right.
So it was not cerebral. I wasn't interested in understanding it.
Right. You're taking it, to the.
See, I did that. I sound like bad. I shouldn't even mention it.
No, it's.
But I was trying to do both.
Right. Thinking that it's possible.
Well, I think that for 30 years, I proved that it was possible.
Leaders like Adam Hamilton today at that Methodist Church of the Resurrection there in Kansas, when I shared that sermon, where he tried to bring a lot of very high level material about science.
I know of only two, and I'm going to tell you about those since you mentioned it. I only know, that's the third example that I know of preaching that I would say would even address these matters.
Right.
And that happened there.
Yeah.
And we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
No. But now, it happened in Kansas.
the Kansas is not the hot button of intellectual life. Let's put that's fair description, not explanation, but it's description. Well, anyway, the church just in north of to the Ohio. What's the great city of Ohio?
Columbus.
Yes, really suburb of Columbus.
Oh.
They have, I was there 4 or 5 years ago, and Zenith, you've heard of Zenith. Yeah. And the Zenith at that time had 5,000 members. Now
this is a church there in that area of Columbus. Okay.
Yeah, just a Bible church. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Two things about them as examples, education example. Every of the 12 men that were the education people, the preaching people, were all PhDs.
Okay, so they had done a little bit. Yeah.
Now, but they taught a Christian worldview, and never in my life, smaller or larger, have I seen more people sitting in church taking notes of the sermon. Never.
So it was engaging their mind.
Now. And they wrote, and still useful, I don't suppose it's used anymore, The Death of Truth. Okay. Well, he was saying that 40 years before people recognized it was dead. Well, anyway, I take that as a model. Preaching and teaching and all their educational programs, and that congregation, they realize that it's good for PE, for promotion, but you get too big for your britches. They started 14 churches.
Oh, okay.
And paid 1 year, bought them property.
Right.
That was their mission project.
And paid the salary.
And paid the salary for 1 year.
Wow, they get them going, they get them a jump start.
Now, that's fair. They had a split in that 5,400. I said 5,000, but that was a lie. They had a split in it when Pentecostal influence, emotionally, came into the church.
Okay.
Now, I think this is a very mature response of that group. Just a few years back, they told the leaders, that they could not teach that here. They were splitting the church.
Right.
Because you had small groups.
Sure, yeah.
And see, when you have a group grow,
Yeah.
you can have as much chaos as you have hope. But anyway, here the leaders said, we will pay you for property, but you cannot any longer teach that. If you want to stay here, you have to be silent. Right. Well, it was 150 people in the last time that they started, but they paid for 1 year, even though they disagreed.
Oh, so they still supported the effort of the church, even though
for 1 year.
Yeah.
He said, "We'll help you."
That was gracious.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could be more gracious than that. And then they started, I forget, 4 or 5 churches all over, trying to control the number.
Right.
Well, they didn't want 10,000 or 20,000.
Sure.
Like, if you don't have that, you're nobody.
Sure. It was logistically easier to start new churches than to try to create more property and go into debt more.
This is your bread, so that you understand.
Well, you're kind, Doc. But I tell you, we're just about ready to run out of time on this first tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for this initial session, and then we'll be able to unpack some of the things that you talked about in the next one.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, we'll go eat, Chris.
Okay.
My wife gave me $12.
Okay, well, we'll eat like kings.
And I've already got $5.
Okay.
So I've got money to spend.